So this is a hip-focused balance practice. We are going to take a fairly straightforward one leg standing pose, but add a little bit more nutrition and nourishment for your brain, as well as your hip joint, but also knees, lower legs, feet, ankles, a little bit of the rest of the body as well. So if you know that balance is a little bit of a thing for you and you would be better off to have some support, stand near a wall or have a chair or a countertop or table, something nearby you to place your hand or your fingertips on, or even to lean into a little bit if that feels more supportive for you. Remember that balance is always a practice. It's definitely worth working with, aiming to improve, especially as we age. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll just approach the pose straightforward to begin with. Look at standing on one leg and how to be a little more active in your standing leg as we do that. And then we're going to change it up just a little bit. So rather than just kind of leaning into one hip, picking up a foot, what we want to do is maybe create a little bit more support in that standing hip joint. It really helps to wake up some of those smaller muscles around the hip joint itself, those deeper muscles as well as the big muscles, and just brings a little more oomph to the whole of the practice. So you can start by maybe shaking your feet. You can wiggle out your hips and your arms a little bit before we get going, and just finding a pretty comfortable stance. You start on either side. You're going to take your weight, shift it over into that side just a little bit. But again, instead of kind of sinking into what will become your standing hip, you're going to encourage that hip to hug in. So not sinking, hug the hip in. And then as you do that, you're going to press the center of your standing heel and the ball of your standing foot a little more firmly into the floor. Aiming to keep that action, slowly start to pick up your other leg. Just for now, pick it up. See how that feels in the standing hip. You could even sink and then hug in just to compare the two. See which one feels like a little bit more effort, a little more oomph for you maybe. Then just let that lifted leg relax. Maybe shake out that standing leg a little bit. Try the other side. So shift your weight into your opposite leg, pick up the foot, and then instead of sinking, hug the hip in, press down into the center of your heel, press down into the ball of your standing foot. And then just see how that feels, again, around the hip joint, maybe even the knee, lower leg, the foot. Good. You can check and see the difference between slumping and hugging. Good. And then you can relax that, give that a little shake. So when we do this practice, you want to aim to keep that hugged in, active feeling happening in your standing leg really throughout the whole of the practice as much as you can. So we're going to bring the lifted leg up just a little bit higher. It's kind of like a standing hand to big toe pose variation. So go back to your first side, shift your weight into that leg just a little, create that hug, press down through the center of your heel, ball of the foot, and then start to bring your other leg up. So we'll start off just to get a feel for not moving, for being steady or trying to be steady and still in the pose. Hands can go wherever feels interesting or more supportive for you, okay? Do your own best variation of the pose, keeping that hug in, slowly lower the lifted leg. Good. Shake that out just a little bit, walk it off. Try the other side. So, hugging the opposite hip in, pressing the center of the heel, ball of the foot into the floor, lift up on the opposite leg. Good. Just to this kind of standing hand to big toe variation. One little thing to watch out for while we're hugging in is we don't want to let that hip, lifted hip, hike up. So keeping the pelvis fairly level, finding a moment of maybe equilibrium for a breath or two. Then just notice, does one side balance a bit better, more straightforward than the other? And then slowly lower that back down. Shake that out, okay? So that's just standing. That's really just standing on one leg. It's not really challenging our balance. Again, it's a practice. It's a worthwhile practice to challenge our balance, to shake things up for our brains and our nervous system, so that when we need our balance, when we need to catch ourselves, perhaps, we have the capacity to do so. I'll get to that afterwards. So we're going to come back to the start of that, but then we're going to start to add a little bit of movement. So again, if balance is tricky for you, to make sure you have something nearby you to hold on to. And over time, maybe you hold on a little bit less as you go. So start with your first leg, press that standing heel, ball of the foot into the floor, hug that standing hip in, lift up the opposite knee. Find somewhere that feels natural for you to place your hands. Doesn't really matter where they're going to go for this. And instead of just standing in the shape this time, we're going to add a little bit of movement. You're going to start to bring that knee out to the side, around, and taking it around to tuck in behind, not holding, but just hovering, tucked in behind your standing knee, and then you're going to come back up. And we'll try that a couple of times. You don't want to do this too quickly, although you could certainly add a bit more speed to it. That is a thing. Just for now, getting used to the movement. The whole time, being mindful of not sinking in, so keep that hug, not sinking in to your standing hip, even though we're bending the knee, and flexing the hip just a little bit more. Good. Just notice how that feels, balance-wise, how it feels in your ankle, your foot, your standing knee, and of course, that hip. If you wobble, if you fall out, absolutely perfect. It's absolutely perfect. You just come straight back in, try again. Balance is definitely practice, and wobbling, falling, it's all part of the practice. So go with the flow, come back, try again from the start. As you come back to 2 feet, shake that out. We just pause, stand for a moment, notice how that felt in that more active working standing side compared to the lifted side. And then notice how the balance was on that side as well. Did that feel straightforward? If that's the case, we can add a few more challenges to that practice. If it felt pretty tricky as it was, stick with it, work on it, and then gradually add some layers. So we're going to try the other side. So same thing, not sinking into the hip, hugging the hip in, center of the heel, ball of the foot pressing down into the floor, not hiking, forgot to mention that on the other side, as you lift your opposite leg. Again, hands can go and do whatever feels good or supportive in your body. And then same thing, bend the standing knee. We're going to bring that lifted leg around and behind to hover behind your standing knee. So we're not staying still. We're looking to keep this a moving practice for now. And this is just one variation of many different ways that you can play around with any sort of stationary, standing, one-legged balancing pose. This is definitely my harder side. Good. Notice if that hip wants to pop out. Keep it hugging in and try that a few more times. Again, falling out, wobbling, having to change what your hands are doing. All part of the practice. Do what you need to do. Keep pressing that heel down, especially as you come up to standing. You get some really interesting stuff happening deep within the hip joint there. Good. And when you've done a few of those, shake that off, both sides, give it a little wiggle, and come back to standing. Okay, So I chose a practice like this during the crazy times that we're in, because this is really super easy to fit this particular kind of movement into different things you might be already doing throughout your day. So for example, brushing your teeth at your sink, pretty straight. Now maybe you don't want to bring the knee forward, but it's pretty straightforward to add a few of those in while you are brushing your teeth. So a nice trick to get a bit more movement variety into your day. Or, you know, if you're preparing dinner or washing dishes, try to add a few of those in. And I'll show you some more variations in other videos of ways that you can add some balance challenge into your daily routine. But it's really worth doing. It's a great challenge for the nervous system and for the brain, and anything that shakes things up a little bit for us. Movement-wise, there's a real benefit for our overall cognition and brain health. So thank you very much. Play around with that. Let me know how you enjoy it, and we'll add some more balance challenge practices as we go. Thank you.